All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Adam again. We're going to be talking about our spotlight. One of the blessings of being able to do this event is we get to think a lot about what we want to talk about. And of course, the theme today of this elevating advice, the human experience through advice engagement, and of course, new technology is really, really an important topic for us. And one of the things that I think that's been really top of mind for us for many years is how do we deliver an experience that's very human, but also elevated by the technology? In fact, can the technology actually bring conversations to bear that are deeply personal? One of the things, I don't know if anybody had gotten to see it, but this year was shared the World Economic Forum's recent white paper from July 2024. And what it shared was some amazing trends that I think we should all be really paying attention to. And I thought this was fantastic because this can really touch on a lot of the stuff that you and I are dealing with as financial advisors in how are we going to elevate the human experience with technology? How are we going to deal with AI and this kind of disruptive trend? How are we going to deal with, of course, this massive change in demographics and where the money is going? There's clearly a very high expectation about hyper-personalized advice, and holistic financial planning is not just a trend. It's the expectation today. And of course, how do we deal with the flexible pricing that people are now evolving this? And I thought I would take this and weave this into our presentation today, because it's really important that you understand that the technology that you can install in your practice is really addressing the major trends. And of course, the pink elephant in the room, which is why this slide is pink, is really all about the fact that generative AI, as you'll see as a theme here today, is really set to transform financial advice. 67% of working hours in the wealth management industry would be impacted by AI. Now, think about this for yourself. It's not saying that 67% of us are going to lose our job as advisors. It's saying that we actually might get our time back. And the way that I tend to frame this is that if you think about the roles that we have in our jobs, there's really a bifurcation, right? Look at this list, this stacked list of words. For many years, we were required to do the kind of bottom half of this. This is really the implementation work, and maybe we brought in staff or we brought in some tech, and of course, now we're going to bring in AI to help us do this. Really, the best and highest revenue producing work that we can do as advisors is that top section. It's where we build our great relationship currency. It's where we focus on what matters. It's where we build our trust with the client. But of course, we still do need to stack this on top of an implementation. And today we're seeing more than ever that if we have a team that we're delegating to, maybe a multi-person team, maybe on-site, maybe off-site, maybe offshore, supported by technology, we can actually deliver scale. This thing that everybody's been talking about in technology for years, how do you help more people at a lower cost point? And I think that's going to be really important for all of us, because we're going to see massive pressure on margin compression, and we're going to see lots of opportunities to disrupt the way that we do business today. So I think you'd be very mindful to say, how do I start structuring my firm this way? Well, the challenge we've seen in the tech stack is if you kind of imagine this paradigm of a front office per se and a back office, if we can really focus more of our time on this high value work and save that maybe from tech as well as AI, we'll call that contributions to our overall product journey or client journey, maybe that would actually allow us to organize our tech differently. So when we think about the customer experience, the customer tends to experience what's above the line, right? That high empathy, relationship currency. And that's really where we think advice engagement really leads. Do we have technology that's going to help support the conversation and interaction that brings up the benefit of all this fantastic tech and analysis and that of my people to bear for conversation? Because at the end of the day, we need to make decisions. So the real key for helping clients make decisions for which they're still going to pay us is going to be predicated on how well we communicate, how we present contextually. And here's the argument I would make to you throughout the day and of course beyond it. It's that we all need to invest in the original AI, which is advisor intelligence. And the technology that helps us do this is really going to help us win. I hope you relate this. So let me talk a little bit about what we've been doing at AssetMap for a couple of years. I'm going to go to full screen here because you don't need to see me. You know what I look like at this point. The real value of AssetMap in the early years was really we collect data fast. And this is really important because regardless of how you're collecting the data, whether you're using our discovery profiler, our stencil overlays, or perhaps you've even started to using our API because you've started to build up some significant amount of data or clients in AssetMap, These are all intended to help you accelerate the data collection process so you can get to an advice conversation really fast. So hopefully you're seeing like thousands of advisors are bringing in thousands of households literally every month using Discovery. Stencils is also a great way to accelerate that conversation. If you're not familiar with Asset Map in its kind of basic sense, it's really all about solving the problem of, can we actually get on the same page with our clients? Can we show them that we have listened to them, whether we're talking about themselves or their household? Perhaps we're talking about maybe just their children. Maybe we want to have a conversation about generation one, like my mother-in-law and the trust that her husband left for her. And are we getting involved in that management? Or perhaps we're even talking about our businesses and the business partners we have and employees and their benefits. So the key is to create a flexible system that allows me to have a conversation that can go in any direction depending upon where the conversation really needs to go. That's an important aspect for all of us. But one of the things that's really important is that when we look at this data, we should be able to collect richer data over time. And we've seen that advisors have taken this now to a whole nother level by integrating, let's say, their CRM and having the ability to jump right out to their CRM and do some contextual work, note-taking, start workflows right from Asset Map into the supported way you are. So remember, we're going deep into that tech stack and showing things like nitrogen and having contextual conversations and perhaps bringing up what's the allocation difference, or let's look live into some real-time values here by logging right into nitrogen and having that contextual conversation live with the client, applying our advisor intelligence in real time. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm literally going into nitrogen and then having a conversation, and I'm zooming back out and talking about what and why. That's really the utilization of this at a whole nother level. And it's why we've been really on the forefront of advice engagement, because really what you're seeing here is we can have these continuously contextual conversations live with the client and help them understand. Education is a big part of behavioral finance. It's allowing the client a space to feel like they can now be part of the conversation. Here I am jumping into the trust in Morningstar. And so we're starting to see the holdings underlying here in real time. The thing about this is that I had to do nothing to prep. It was built, it's connected. I just walk in the meeting, I look like a rock star. Here I even have Dropbox tax returns tied in, but the client had put that all in a Dropbox. So the reality is that there's this evolution of how we all work together, especially at AdviceTech, is really starting to change. And as I start to kind of unwind this, sometimes I want to have conversations that are about the planning. Maybe we need to talk about some signals where we just won a whole bunch of awards for the signals algorithmic feedback. These are financial fire drills that are constantly running in the background to basically tell us, hey, these are some problems. Okay. And that's a real challenge. Perhaps I want to talk about just target map planning, or I want to figure out where we are relative to retirement funding. That's a really an important aspect to what we're doing, because we need to do this in literally 30 seconds. And that's something that we really haven't seen a lot of capability for advisors to bring the back office of that analysis to the front of the screen. Okay, that's really important. Sometimes we need to talk about cash flow details with our engineers, and that's because they really want to see that, right? They want to understand what's the underlying stuff going on behind the scenes. So I just communicate the problem, right? We're underfunded in this area. This is what we need to do about it. And so for years, we've been creating these visual displays where everything needed to be on one page, whether it's the balance sheet, the policy summary, some key metrics, so that you could have a tear sheet financial engagement experience for the conversational financial planning. And I really wanted to share that with you because that's really where we think it's going. When we think about where this market is going and all the tech that's going to support all of us in the field, we really have to double down on what we're good at, which is having these conversations. And it's really just driving the we'll call relationship currency at a whole nother level. And so here's how we're investing. And I'm going to show you one of the coolest things that we're doing right now, which is we've now embedded signals and that feedback right into the Asset Map experience, where you can now see live the contributions that different financial decisions are making into the wellness or well-being of this client. This is going to be unbelievable. Imagine being with a client and saying, well, here's why we're potentially having exposure in this event. I see it's long-term disability. It's that there's a mismatch between our incomes and our protections. Or perhaps we want to look at something completely different and we want to fix it in live, real time. We're going to say we're going to change something. So let's look at perhaps, I guess, a loss of life scenario, right? It's coming up as yellow. What are the contributing factors to that? Here they are. Or what about long-term care? What instruments could conceivably be used here? This is education, advice, engagement in real time. And I think it sets a whole new stage where we're able to bring that back office concept consumably to the front so that clients are now building trust and understanding as to what we're doing. Very, very important. We're about to be able to do this with all of our financial planning. So if I have a retirement plan for this family that's 76% funded, I can now see the assumptions being made underlying here in real time in the context to which they're used to seeing it. That is really different. And I think you're going to find this as a fantastic conversation piece that we have on an ongoing basis with our clients because they're really looking for this whole new level of experience. Really, really cool stuff. All right. One of the things that I think would be really important for you all to pay attention to is this great wealth transfer, which is just coming upon us like an unbelievable storm. Now, many of us have been waiting for this to happen already, but I would argue to you, it is happening. And we've all heard these phrases that there's going to be 70 some trillion dollars moved to the next generation. Now it's supposedly it's 80 some trillion. I don't know if we're ever going to get this right, but I picked this up from the New York Times recently and showed that baby boomers are controlling about half of the wealth in the generations. X and silent generation millennials having the coverage of covering the middle. But here's the thing that's happening. The silent generation, for the most part, are the grandparents of a Generation X. They're going to move this money sooner, and it's about 18 trillion. That means X generation is going to be very wealthy. And if you include what they're going to get from the baby boomers over the next 20 years, the X generation will be a dominant factor in this on this slide of the overall net worth of our country in a whole new way, which means what are the expectations of Generation X and millennials? And for those of you that are working intergenerationally, in other words, with a boomer client and their adult children, or maybe X generation clients that probably have exposures to their parents and the estates that will flow to them, we need a way to talk about financial interdependency in a whole different way. And that's the next feature I want to share with you. We recently had a lot of requests to take the best part, the most valuable part of this, which is the family members, the reason why we're doing anything, and really apply asset map concept to this. And so we're introducing a new concept called relationship mapping. Now, in a sense, if you're trying to understand what this is a mind map, fully flexible view in app connected to the household data. So full interactivity with all of our different integration partners and embedded finance within asset map. And we can now start having conversations with our clients to bring up topics like, what are we going to do about Nana and what Beatrice? Are there going to be dependencies here? Do I need to think about what we have to do for long-term care? Is she going to be a dependent upon us? What about distributions from the trust? Let's say, let's add the family trust. Where does that play for this client? And do we need to think about how that's going to support her lifestyle during her life? And then perhaps where's the corpus or residual going to go? Is that going to go to Christine as her beneficiary? Because I can't have it go to Joseph because Joseph is actually special needs, and that would be a challenge. So I need to do some planning here, either charitable or other, to really kind of meet the overall needs. Is that a reason for me now to talk to my clients' parents? Is that a reason for me to talk to my clients' adult children and do this mapping for them to show the value that we bring to the table as their financial professional? What I think you're going to start to see is this kind of accelerated impact of what we need to deliver to our clients by showing them their life in whole different ways. So whereas you can start out with a family tree and say, okay, let's just make sure we've got our facts straight, we can actually start having unbelievable conversations around how this can evolve for your family and how we can bring in different conversations, perhaps business partners or companies or employees, or maybe I want to talk about trust models. The sky's the limit here. And it's really amazing to see how many things we can do. I think that you're going to find is really kind of fun. And I'm going to skip ahead because I got to show you something that's really quite amazing here. One of the things that I thought was really kind of fun is that in many of these cases, you can actually link back to other opportunities. So here's an example of where I've created this map for this family. And I want to look at Tim, and I want to look at his holistic plan because I want to talk about tax with this family. We're just doing some estate tax work. Let's jump right out to holistic plan and let's see what's going on with his tax returns. I mean, there's some really amazing things that we've been able to do here. And I hope if you're taking advantage of a whole bunch of the partners that we have, you can start adding these superpowers to your asset map. And I think it's unlike anything else if you want to live in this presentation mode of really delivering a lot of advice engagement in real time. Really just cool stuff. Another thing that I think we've seen is really missing in our space is this idea of legal documents. A lot of advisors don't ask about the legal documents because maybe they don't manage a significant portion of the client's book, or maybe they just do investments or insurance. But now we have the ability to catalog whether legal documents actually exist in a client's repertoire of legal documents. So for example, their wills. Where is it located? Oh, it's located in the desk drawer. Okay, that's a good start. That'll help me find it when we need it. When's the last time it was created? What about Christine's will? Or what about the buy-sell plan for your company? When these things don't exist, it gives us an opportunity to bring it up. And I think that's really the key. You're now starting to see this will be included actually as of tomorrow on all asset map subscriptions that are not compliance blocked, we'll call it, that have the ability to ask, do you have your legal documents in order? Really, really impactful. I hope you take advantage of it. Another way to take advantage of the generational wealth transfer is a concept we call an intentional legacy. And one of the things that we keep noticing is that when we look at our beneficiary designations section in Asset Map, a lot of advisors are not completing this section. They're leaving it, to chance, and it's a real problem. So what we designed is this concept of beneficiary reports where you can now look at both primary and contingent beneficiaries, and we could effectively knock off an individual in the family and see where their assets, instruments of finance are going, not just assets and liabilities, but income sources and insurance policies. So we can confirm, yes, somebody has checked that in fact, this policy is going where it's supposed to go. It turns out that in most of our families, maybe even someone you know personally, maybe your own household, there is a lot of mess with respect to who are the beneficiaries and who are, of course, the contingent. And it can cause a real mess, not only cost, probate, but also aggravation when these assets go to the wrong place. So you can see here, I'm actually going in and I'm actually designating who are the beneficiaries and I'm correcting this. And the key is not to get this perfectly right. The key is to ask the client, who is the beneficiary and does this match your intent? Because it turns out that very often we tend to think it's true, but it's not. It's never been changed or nobody ever checked. And therefore we run into a mess. So check this out now. We're actually able to look at this in a whole new way. We just designed this in this kind of true asset map form. As I go with this, now let's look at this in beneficiary map view. So just like everything, we want to have a visualization that helps us communicate to the client what's going on and how we can do this a little bit better. You'll see all the instruments that are unassigned. We don't know where they're going. You can see the assets and the liabilities and the insurance policies that are designated. Which ones are they? Does it include all the ones I think it's supposed to? Maybe, maybe not. So a really important aspect to this, I think it's going to be important for all of us to pay attention to this and provide this kind of experience to our clients. At the end of the day, I think most of our clients look at Asset Map as a way to facilitate this conversation around having a treasure map. Who has the treasure map for our family? Very few people have any map whatsoever. They got a bunch of statements and some files and folders that are locked on an Excel spreadsheet no one can get to. And I think the real key for us over the years, we've seen enormous utility from an advisor just providing a map, a physical map of or inventory of your assets and liabilities and insurance policies, et cetera, to somebody when that event happens, especially in a wealth transfer situation. But it's true that the younger generations, ex-millennial, they are expecting digital first and value-aligned experience. And so how are you going to engage the next generation? Well, the way you're going to do this is you're going to establish a client portal. And we have a read-only client portal that you can control to create accessibility now for your customers. Now, you may not give this to everybody, But you can see for those clients that really want to be enabled digitally, we can now share this in the meeting, bring up their own personal QR code. They can log in right then during your meeting, and now they can see what you can see. Where we have seen failures around this is that advisors make the mistake that the person who in the family who's the CFO is the only person who needs to see this. That's not the case. In a successor environment, when someone becomes a survivor or otherwise, you really need to make sure that both people have their own unique experiences. So that's why we recommend that for both parties in a two-person household, that they each have their own login and permissioning so that they do not feel like they're out of the loop. Here's where it takes another turn and advisors can have an awesome opportunity. What happens if we now take this and say, you know what, I think I'd like to expand the conversation, all right? Now that we've delivered to this to digitally and we've actually listened to our clients, what happens if we start moving towards a concept of holistic financial well-being? And I don't mean just insurance and investment and a little bit of tax on the side. I mean, we're really talking about being on the forefront of helping people make better financial decisions, even though they have nothing to do with our core skills or core training. And I think this is really evidenced by the fact that the survey that I just quoted for you is actually telling us exactly that people are paying attention to this. Significant amount of us are really focusing on AUM fees. And of course, if you look at our gross income, heavily weighted to advisory management. But it's very true here. Boomers are highly loyal. 9% of boomers who are going to move for lower fees. That's not a lot, but 55% of millennials will, which means you need to deliver more holistic guidance. And it needs to touch on all of these things, not just the traditional insurance investment worlds that we've all lived in for years. That means legal investment. It means bringing in different experts on our team or related to our team that are going to add value. And I really think that this mega trend of holistic advice is going to require collaboration. We are not going to know the best in the decision for everything that a client can do. That means we need to collaborate. So how would you collaborate in asset map? I've already told you that this is effectively a visualization of all of the truth. But what if we were to start adding our other professionals like John Dawkins, the CPA to this household, to the family, okay? And we're going to add them in this way. We're not going to specify their gender and we don't know their date of birth, and it's okay. But the client is enabling me to say, you know what? I'm going to share this client portal read-only with them so that we can now collaborate. Them on their own time, me on my own time, and now we can actually be looking at the same thing. Can we all be on the same page, please? This is really important. We've never been able to do it. We're going to share a balance sheet and an income statement and hope that they're going to see the same thing. No, we're talking about actually sharing this. So when I look at the family map, which I just showed you, the relationship map, perhaps I can actually now bring John intimately into the conversation by giving them a place on the family map here, or relation map, and show what his relationship is going to be to the family. Maybe I might look at Thomas, who's their adult child. That's Ben and Betsy Ross's adult child. And I'm going to share a portal with him selectively to get him indoctrinated into this process so that I am incredibly valuable to this family as the purveyor of the entire treasure map. Do you see what's happening here? What would happen if you were to start doing this and including other professionals, other members of the family? Could you work intergenerationally? Could you work side to side? Could you expand the existing relationship? And I want to leave you with this idea. It's very clear that the firm of the future is not going to look like the firm of the present. And the big statement from this survey really talked about something we've been talking about for years. Investors are more aware of diversity in age, race, ethnicity, gender, and income, and the advisors they work with. So your firm needs to look like the client of the future, and you need to do it now. It's going to be very hard to relate to your firm if I'm basically coming from a completely different vantage. And it's going to require that you and I focus on delegation and mentorship first. That means, how are we lifting our own people in our team? How are we expanding? How are we leading by example in our firm, putting the right people in place to be our successors, to support our values and the values of our clients, and of course, to be continuous innovators, hopefully, and think about this. And the big failure I have seen, and I hope that you pay attention to this, if nothing else, the big failure I have seen as both a financial professional running a firm and also a fintech CEO running a 50-person company is that there's always a lack of investment in the training. Most enterprises are spending 2 to 4 times their SaaS costs, that's subscription costs, in training and adoption, because you don't get the adoption, you don't get the ROI. And so one of the things that we did is we invested in this project called Asset Map University. We really love this thing. It's a full LMS, learning management system, for advisors who want to learn and get credentialed. One of the things that I said when we said, what are we going to do for all our ATL attendees, is that we would invest in all of those that wanted to pursue Asset Map, and we would put $800 of advice of Asset Map University behind anybody who wanted to expand and work with us, bring in a delegate, bring in a new advisor, that we would invest in their education. So I hope that you take advantage of this. When you go to this, if this is something you pursue, you definitely tell them that I mentioned this and they will honor it. Of course, we'll have it on our records, and I'll leave you with this call to action. The bottom line is I've talked about a lot of things. I've showed you some amazing things in Asset Map. Hopefully you see the application of it, how it's going to elevate the game. But the question is, at the end of the day, what are you going to do about it? Number one, for 2025 is coming. It's right around the corner. We're in business planning mode. How are you going to provide holistic advice for real? And how are you going to collaborate with your clients and their other professionals and earn the respect and opportunity to cross market? How are you going to engage multiple generations of clients? How are you going to invest in your team's ROI on the tech that you're investing in? You're spending this money anyway. How are you making sure they multiply? Okay. And lastly, how are you going to elevate your own time and skills and let the clients know that they should value it by applying your advisor intelligence? Yes, the original AI. I'm really curious about this. I hope you take the opportunity to write in here. And of course, if you want to pursue any of the things that I've talked about, there's a QR code to go find many different paths. If you're an existing advisor, thank you that you're using Asset Map. Talk to our CSS team about any of the offers that I mentioned here. But please, I hope that you take one thing from this, which is you got to figure out a way how to invest in yourself and your practice. And of course, we hope this is a way you do it. For the rest of the day, you're going to see an enormous amount of tech. I hope you take advantage of it, pursue it, experiment with it, and have a fantastic rest of the event. I'll see you later at the end of the day.